Okay, so Nigel, thanks for joining me today. As we know, this is a discussion about Growzz and how Molson Coors has been using Growzz under your sponsorship and leadership. Before we get into a little bit of a discussion around it, do you just want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Nigel Tordoff. I'm the Chief Customer Officer for Molson Coors in the USA business. And I guess as a quick recap to how I find myself in this role and working with Growzz, I've been with the organisation nearly 30 years now in just about every sales role that exists in all the different channels, and worked in the UK business, through into the Canadian business, into the global customer excellence team, and then finally into the US team. So the nice part is, which is a good introduction to the relationship for Growzz, is I'm actually seeing this tool work in multiple different countries, in multiple different customers, and the common theme throughout all of it is that it actually works anywhere for any scale customer. So it's a really great tool. So pleased to be able to have the conversation today. So
how would you? I mean, you've been using it for quite a while now in different ways. In your words, what would you describe what Growzz actually does for people who haven't seen it before?
I think in its simplest form, it's a customer business planning aid, and it's more than an aid because it's a little bit like a coach. It has all the best practices within there, and it's got a really nice sequence of steps to go through to be able to really build together and unlock the insights that you can gain from the customer, and to put it into a sequence set of actions that can unlock long-term growth between us and all of our chain and key account customers, which frankly are pretty complicated in today's world, are getting more complicated than ever. But it allows the teams to be able to operate as a team, knowing what every single step of the journey is to unlock long-term growth.
Great stuff. So you've been, as I know, you've been on a kind of journey with Growzz for quite a while now. Where did you start? What have you gone through, and where are you now with Growzz?
It almost feels like three separate journeys. If I think about it, in the time we've worked together, I guess the first trip that we went on was when we were doing it as a consultant-based model, and I saw the first impact of that. But I still remember the conversation quite vividly. That was a lot of effort, and I mean, great results, but a lot of effort, and it was something that was difficult to scale. The second journey was when we first scaled this with technology, when we rolled it out into the Canadian team with new capabilities, and did it on several customers all at the same time, and got some progression going. And then the final part, I think, is the development part, is when we really honed in and worked out how to make it work from a software, from getting the customer and the diagnostics coming back in, and not linking it all together when we rolled it out within the US team. So it's just got amplified every single trip we've been on as this has gone through, which is the part I think I've enjoyed the most, because what the model was and what it was capable of doing 5 years ago is night and days away from what it's capable of doing today. Yeah. And because I see how much development's going on, I can't wait to see what it looks like in 5 years' time, because if it's the same trip again, it will be amazing. It's already amazing now, let alone what it could turn out to be.
So you started with that kind of, well, with a prototype that we'd helped with consulting around it. You then kind of got it into some different countries. So but it was originally in the UK, but beyond the UK. And then you've now actually got it as software as a service, so that your own people are just using it. They don't require any help from external people. What types of benefits have you got from it on the journey?
I think there's been, I put them into two groups. If I think about the relationship part with the customer first, and then I'll talk about the benefits to the sales teams themselves. From the customer relationship, one of the biggest insights I gained when I came into the US business was we'd earned the #1 rating on an Advantage Group survey for our relationships with our chain customers, which is hard work for any team to earn a #1 rating for the Advantage Group survey. But when you read through all the comments and got to the details, there was one gap where there was significant opportunity for us to improve, which was long-term strategic alignment with our customers. And I think what the Growzz program has helped us to be able to do is to be able to really solidify a long-term joint ambition with our customers. It's unlocked a really aligned view about how we're going to grow the category together. It's found ways that we can unlock operational efficiencies between all of our customers and our organization. That frees up dollars and hours that we can invest in the right strategic initiatives for long-term growth. And the relationship has not only got deeper with the buyers and the sales teams, it's actually got deeper within the customer organization. We've got to far more in-depth, top-to-top conversations and really thought about long-term alignment than I think ever before. When I then break that down to what's that done to the sales teams, it's quite a daunting process to think about how do you create a plan for growth, because there are just so many elements that are constantly changing. I think the software as it sits now has got, for me, three main elements to it. That the first part is it guides you through the steps. If you just answered the questions and follow the diagnostic, it's going to help you get to a better place already. The second part for me, then, it provides you with an action plan that you can just systematically start to go through, either as a team that's very small, or in a large team, you can start to allocate the tasks out to the members of the team. And the final part, which I actually think is the most visible part to the customer sometimes, are the templates that we've been able to use to communicate the plan back to the customer in a way that's just really simple for them to be able to repeat and get energy behind and get their teams engaged with. So it's a complicated process, growth, and that's why I like. It's the one bit that makes me smile every time when you told me how the name of Growzz had come about from growth and wizard. You have to smile because that's a pretty smart naming convention, because that's the best way to describe what the tool does.
Yeah. So it's been like I guess the big shift has been from being able to use it in a limited way. So I think when you started it with Tesco and it really impacted on your business with Tesco in the UK and other retailers, and then using it across Canada. But what you've been able to do in the US is to use product at scale, so that your entire organization is now involved through the software on customer business planning, as opposed to trying to fix individual situations with individual teams. Is that right?
It is. Yeah, I put a couple of builds on there as well. So I think about when we first we did the very first one with you and I together on Tesco's, when you first showed me the tool. I remember the amount of times I had to pick up the phone to ask you for advice. The scaling of it now is the chat button functionality, where the teams can ask at any point 24/7 a day to be able to work out what to do next or to have the help. The support that you provided, so the teams have become educated on the tool. And the most impressive piece is the commonality of the language now. So if I think back to when I took on this job 2 years ago, the idea of a joint ambition didn't exist in our vocabulary at all, or a guiding principle didn't exist. And the glossary was hard work at the time to be able to create a glossary that had every single word listed. And I was sat there, I've got to be honest, a little bit of a skeptic, going, it sounds really daft, but American English is very different to Canadian English, which is very different to English. But the way that we've been able to get across the globe language to become so common, and the customers to pick up on that language as well, is probably the best description of how this has become scalable. Yeah. That I've now got out my top 50 chain customers that collectively sell about $4.5 billion of business. They would all use the word joint ambition. They would all use guiding principles and a compelling category vision and operational efficiencies and strategic initiatives. And the majority have done a diagnostic, and at different levels. It's been quite amazing to see. I think we've had a few challenges along the way, because it's not all been perfect. And I think the interesting part is that my biggest personal learning was when you put the whole of the tool in front of a sales team or individual, it's actually overwhelming. Yeah. And it scared a few of the team, because when you see it all at once in one go and try and do all of it all at once, I think that's the piece where we haven't made that mistake twice since. We've actually done bite-sized chunks of how we've rolled it out and got them to get comfortable with one part first. And the moment they see the first part hit and connect with the customer, you don't have to ask them to do the second stage or the third stage. They're up and running. Yeah. But I think that's probably the biggest learning to be able to go with scale, because you're going with breadth and you're going with depth. That means you cover a lot of ground. Yeah, I think choosing one of those variables has got us to a good spot. And
that's been a good learning, hasn't it? It's that there's so much in it. We've been doing that. We've been breaking out different parts of it so people can choose much more of what they want to do first, what they want to do next. So that what they're doing is they're constantly improving what they're doing, even if they're not starting off by trying to change everything, which is the thing that can make it overwhelming and daunting when suddenly you're given something which just provides so much insight around what you can do.
It is. There's almost a little piece as well with just this is just good business practice in terms of change management, but having the teams share the best practices and the results that they delivered from doing different parts of the modules. So, for example, I don't know if I shared with you, we did the California's Grocers Association session maybe 3 weeks ago now. Normally it would be face to face, and we did 9 customer meetings, all for 45 minutes long. Out of the 9 of them, we'd already talked to the customer about creating a joint ambition with them through the Growzz model. And out of the 9, 7 of those customers, we actually had the conversation and dialogue with the customer live. And in 45 minutes, we'd extracted enough insight from that conversation to have a go at writing the first draft. We're now 3 weeks on from that meeting. And out of those 7 customers, we've now got 5 of them who've actually signed off on that joint ambition as being that's what we're going to do for the next 3 years. And it's not that the others we haven't failed. It just takes a little bit longer with a few customers, but to get over the half of them in a 3-week time span, that first step along the journey I couldn't have done that without the software.
It's interesting because it shows the power of, in the first place, really understanding what something is that you should be trying to build and having it spelled out in a completely universal, consistent way, because then you can at scale do something which otherwise relies on really individual expertise of some great person within the team who can figure out how to do it. But it's scaling it requires it to be in something scalable.
It is. And the nice part about Growzz, I think, all the knowledge is there, but it's incumbent on the sales leaders to think about ability. So the way I've described it to my team, it's a really simple analogy, but one of my sons read a book on how to drive a car just before his birthday to drive a car. And when he sat behind the wheel, he was convinced he could drive the car because he'd read the book from cover to cover 30 times over. And within 3 minutes of the experience of driving a car, he realized he got 0 ability. And I think that's where the partnerships work nicely, that you've had all the knowledge is built into the tool. But as a sales leader and sponsor, and then also all of my sales leaders, they have to coach ability. Yeah. So if I think about the California Grocery Association, all the knowledge was there. We've got all the templates, but we used the model to be able to get to the starting grid, but then had to practice the role plays with the customer, what they were going to say, who was going to lead each part of the conversation, what questions to ask. And when the team got stuck, the nice part was you could just get them to go back into the Growzz model and say, what's the next question on the list? Where did we drop out in the diagnostic where we said we can't answer yes to that question? Yeah. Look at the next 3 questions. That's what you're going to tease out in the conversation for what you're going to be able to do next.
I think that's a really good point, because what you've got is, just because it's intelligent software, it's not taking away capability from people. No. It's doing the opposite. It's giving them extra support so that what they can do is unlock the capability that they have and actually then create really different things. But then also, because there's a consistent way of doing it, you start, I guess, to create much more of an organizational memory around all the different practices you have, and they become a lot more visible.
It is, and it's nice to be able to see the template usage as well, because I mean, you and I can picture quite easily the joint ambition 1-page template, and I just use that as an example. I could use lots of the other templates in there as well, but as an example, that starts off within the model, which is fairly consistent. I've seen different shapes and colours of that across the last 50 customers. And the nice part is they're all now colour themed with the retailer, and you've got the retailer's imagery on there as well. It's the retailer's font. It feels like it's genuinely a joint ambition.
Yeah.
Because it's being, but the templates allow that every team member. I've just moved a couple of the teams around where they've developed from a smaller team onto a larger team. And the nice part is they've been able to go in straight away, read the templates, which may look slightly differently, but fundamentally the same process. And they've been able to pick up on a bigger account instantly and be able to run at pace because the consistency sits across the whole of the sales division. And I think when we start to see the world open up again and people are looking for their next bigger role and moving on to a bigger team, if you come from an individual contributor and being an executor of the program, and then you become a team leader and have to lead the program, all the language is the same, the process is the same, it's automated. And I like the ability to be able to see the model at different viewpoints as well, where the one screen you just shared with me recently, where I can see where all the teams are up to and where the ratings are from the customers on each of the different areas. At every level, whether it's strategic or it's operational, I know where we're up to and what we need to be able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So that kind of brings me on to, I guess, where we are a bit now, which is that you've been, for the last just over a year, been pioneering the use of Growzz across the US organization at scale. We trained up the whole commercial organization, and then there's been lots of other different functional departments inputting to Growzz to support planning across tons of different customers. But we're going to a next stage of the journey now, where what it's done to date is it's really helped with situation analysis within your customer strategies. It's helped you to build a quite radically, potentially different improvement plan to improve things like commercial improvements, shopper understanding, operational improvements that create that sort of sustainable journey, build better trading plans, cement the joint business plan. What we're now doing is we're now moving to a software solution for the end-to-end customer business planning process. So all the different steps that you go on through the year, both internally and externally, bringing in what your business is trying to do as a whole right into that customer engagement, actually supporting the whole process. So clearly we've been keen to keep expanding what Growzz does, but what does that, why is it of interest and value to you? What does it mean to you to take this next stage?
I start with the users, because that's an interesting place to start, and the team members who are using it the most because they're in front of their customer. I think what I've seen through the impact of the coronavirus is that the intensity of their role has actually increased. There's more time they're spending on a screen, or there's more time they're spending preparing things. And I guess there's so much more time they have to communicate to other people who can't interact in the same way that they would do previously. And when you mapped out for me the end-to-end customer planning, business planning process, you start to realize how many things are interconnected in this multifunctional team world. That's the part I'm looking forward to the most, that so many of the processes we can automate now and give the sales team members more time to be able to make things happen in front of the customer, or with our distributors, or in front of the stores, because there's just so much for them to be able to do. They've seen the benefits of being able to do a diagnostic and a situation analysis and create a plan, but then you almost have to operationalize the plan and work out where you're going to spend how much and how many dollars and how much time on each of the different category drivers, be able to share with the customer and with the distributors where you're putting all the energy and effort, how you're progressing against each of the strategic initiatives. It just, for me, operationalizes the situation analysis and the growth plan that you've got. It gives you a way to be able to make all of it happen from end to end. And the nice part is, I think you can then cut it in any single way I want to be able to cut the data. I can cut it by one team, I can cut it by one of the states, I could cut it by different clusters of states together to get me to the regions. I can cut it by a Walmart view or a total grocery view. It's the ability to be able to do things that I would have to do manually on Excel that now become all automated. And I ultimately like the idea that we can interconnect that with the other software that we use quite heavily in Salesforce, which do quite different things. So one's about, I guess, within Salesforce reporting the numbers and being able to put mandates or tasks out there to be able to chase down through the distributor network. The Growzz model for me is all about that growth plan. That's not just for the next 3 years as a long range plan, but actually what we are going to do in the next 12 months to be able to deliver short-term growth. So it's automating a perfect time in the world to be able to give, I guess, more control back to our people, so they're not tied just to a screen, being able to do a Zoom or a Teams call hour after hour after hour.
Yeah, so as you know, we're doing quite a broad piece of research across the industry at the moment with about 20 different really big consumer goods companies. And back to what you're saying about the complexity of all the different processes and engaging people on this very complicated process. When we've reviewed the process with people as an early nugget, the average efficiency gain that they believe that you can get on this process is 32%.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that.
That's just huge, isn't it?
It is, and I think if you look at it as well through. I was on a chief customer officer's call last week where there's a handful of us, probably more than a handful, a good cluster of us across the US marketplace, non-competing businesses that use a forum to be able to debate about the things that are hot topics right here and now that we need to be thinking about as a chief customer officer. And one of the most interesting insights that came from that was how buyers want to have more automation in the process as well. They don't want to have everything done through software or through the ability to be able to do it, I guess, electronically, but the need to be able to have more things that are instantly available to them. That's what I think this next evolution of Growzz does. That it's not just for the sales teams to have that capability.
Absolutely.
We can ultimately open it up to the customers eventually, with different viewpoints and different visualizations of the same information. That just cuts down the inefficiency sometimes of having to communicate and present something that you could probably do if they could have a look at it themselves very quickly. And it allows you to have much more dialogue about the really important things that's going to unlock growth, whether that's an operational challenge right here and now on service, or the constraints of what COVID's providing, or a long-term strategic initiative that's going to require a lot more resourcing from both companies to be able to make it happen.
I think that's a really good point, because when you think about the way that you interact with your customers, and I'm sure this is pretty much the same for any consumer goods company, but it's driven around meetings. But when you're in a meeting, you're not always ready to really step back and think about something. There might be something else you have to do straight after the meeting. You may not have the mental capacity to really go deep into something. And so that's why with Growzz, what we realized was, if you could publish the joint business plan and all the different attachments of what you need around it, then buyers and other people in retailers can really understand what it is outside of the meeting as well as inside of the meeting, because they can navigate it, they can explore it. And what we think is that will create a much better way of getting actual agreement, because the problem you have in any kind of agreement with a retailer is, do they actually agree, or did they just nod because they got another meeting to get to? And you kind of historically you've only found out when it didn't happen. So creating these sort of other ways of people learning, understanding, exploring, I think it's a really important thing for the future of actually how you collaborate with retailers.
It is. I think you're absolutely right. And just seeing how many times they're going to interact on the tool will be a great measure in itself.
Yes.
But I think when they start to see them using the templates, and at the moment, I guess in version control, we're still having to do it where we use the templates within Growzz as it stands now. And this is the current journey, so it's not the next journey. But it's going backwards and forwards on PowerPoint, and then it gets saved again. The point at which you can jointly edit it and evaluate it and see the outputs of that, I can't wait for that moment, because that's when you've really truly got collaboration. And you've got a partnership then, which is not a transactional relationship. You've got a long-term strategic alignment. And that's when you unlock real growth. Well,
Nigel, we're very excited to get to the point where we've actually got the software to do that. It's not long now. It's all getting released next year. Thank you for all of your support on this journey. It's been absolutely brilliant, and thank you for spending time with me today.
No problem at all. As you said, I can't wait to see the next journey that we're going to go on together, because everyone's been it's been one hell of a ride so far, and we're not done yet. So looking forward to it.
Brilliant.